standing here at the site of Otterburn Battlefield. This is the visitor centre, or what passes for it here, and it's set in a very nice grove of pine trees. It's a lovely day. It's late June. We're not too far off one of the traditional dates of this battle, which is the 19th of August. And since the battle started at around the late afternoon, we're not too far off what the time either. I'm just going to give you a little walkabout here to show you what is here to see. There is not a lot of things here to see, unless there is something down at the bottom, and I'll check that. At the moment we have not run across any sort of informational panel or marker, so you're really on your own with Wikipedia if you actually come to have a picnic in here, because there are picnic benches, and you want to learn about the Battle of Otterburn if you've never heard of it. And it's a medieval battle. It's not one of the more famous ones, so chances are you haven't heard of the Battle of Otterburn. But I'll give you a quick run through anyway. So the Scottish went on a jaunt. They went down from Jedburgh and started pillaging and ravaging the local countryside on the way to Newcastle. One of the forces that came down from Jedburgh was commanded by the Earl of Douglas, and the idea was to ravage the lands of the Percys. Now the Percys didn't take too kindly to this, and after an initial scrap, the Scottish retreated back the way they had come, burning Ponteland Castle, and then they came to Otterburn at some point at the end of the early part of August. Now they laid siege to Otterburn Castle and made their camp right over there. And I just need to change the aspect ratio there. See that hill there, and that high ground there, which is called Blakeman's Law, the highest point around here, and leads to the Otterburn military ranges. That is where the main Scottish camp was. That is where the men-at-arms were. That's where the Earl of Douglas was. They made their camp up there. And I suppose the idea was to see if they could overwhelm Otterburn Castle, or they were just resting up for the night, having attempted to do so, and we're going to move on the next day. They had another camp though. The other camp was where they had the herds of livestock that they had captured, and where they're more down to earth, shall we say, soldiers, where the poor soldiers and the camp followers and everybody like that, they were down there. And it's difficult to exactly see where I'm pointing, but a little to the right of that belt of trees, so over there, just there, is where the Scottish camp was. The second camp was in the loop of the river, and as you can see, to this day there are animals down there, and the idea is that they corralled a lot of the cattle and sheep and things like that in the loop of that river to stop them escaping, so they could continue to drive them in the days that followed. Little did they know at first that the Earl of Northumberland had not taken too kindly to his lands being ravaged by the Earl of Douglas, had sent his two sons out to chase them, and meanwhile he went up to Alnwick to try and cut them off. Now they followed in the footsteps of the Scots, and they were about a day's march behind them. So by the time the Scottish camped that day in August, after summoning Otterburn Castle to surrender, the English, under the Percy brothers, had come marching up that road over there that you can see the traffic on right now, and were now progressed and had reached Otterburn, and they found out from the castle that there were a large Scottish camp out over here, and the immediate decision was to attack, despite the fact it was the middle of the day. They'd been marching all day, everybody was tired, but they went ahead anyway to try and catch the Scots immediately. And the Earl of Douglas's main body up on the hill, up below Blakeman's Law, came down that high ridge there, shielded by the terrain, we think, and moving from left to right down towards this spot here, this open ground here where all these meadow flowers are right now. Now the English separated into two groups, two battles, and one of them progressed straight along the riverbank, straight along the route of the road, going that way. I'll just quickly run over here and show you. They moved this way back to, and they started heading for the, basically they were heading for the Scottish camp followers down in the loop of the river. And Percy had taken the right flank of the English forces and were moving up this gentle gradient from right to left, diagonally up again towards this field here. And this is where the battle therefore occurred. Meanwhile, the Earl of Douglas's better armed troops, his knights and his men-at-arms, were moving down this way. Whether or not Percy went straight up the hill like this, or whether he came down the road and they separated around this line and the left flank moved that way and the right flank moved up here, because there is some intimation that part of the Scottish army surprised the English army as they were coming up. But either way, initial engagements took place just over this wall, where I'm pointing in this field here. And out there is where the original Percy Cross used to stand. The monument which now serves for that is behind me right now. And this is where the battle took place. The chronicler Froissart said that it was one of the standout battles of the age, a truly chivalrous battle, I think he called it, because of the ferocity of the fighting and the noble deeds he had heard that took place here on this field of meadow flowers right now. And it was here on this ground somewhere appalling scenes of medieval carnage occurred. Don't even think that we can really comprehend, even from watching movies and things like that, the horror of close quarters pre-modern fighting, because this is literally you walking up to another man with a piece of steel in your hand and trying to end his life or dismember him en masse. There were several thousand men across this field, all using those techniques you've seen in a lot of other documentaries that they've been taught by sword masters or by the men-at-arms at their various garrisons. And it's really difficult to contemplate what that would have been like, or the reality of that, to be honest. But this is where it happened. This is the field of the Battle of Otterburn. The tactics are very simple. The English left, continued that way. They surprised the Scottish camp and drove it further on down the modern main road in that direction. They just kept chasing the enemy that they had surprised in that direction. Meanwhile, the battle here swung in the favour of the Scots as they started piling over that low ridge that you can see where that tree line up there is deceptive. That tree line up there is deceptive. You can't see the bottoms of those trees. So they came over the lip of the rise. They had a good drop on the English, therefore we can assume, and they put them to flight. The cost, of course, was that the Earl of Douglas was killed some point during the battle. Some people say he was stabbed in the back by an unfaithful retainer. Some people say he just died in the confusion, but he did die. And this stone here, not that you know it, because there is nothing here to tell you exactly what happened except for a sign down at the motorway, a brown tourist sign. that tells you that this is the site of the Battle of Otterburn. This is all that's here to mark where the Percys and the Douglases clashed, and where indeed the other Douglas died. The other thing is, of course, that the Scottish took many prisoners, including several knights, and indeed Percy himself, Hotspur. So here we are, guys. This is the Otterburn marker. This is the Percy's Cross, I think they used to call it, which used to stand out in the battlefield proper. But of course, the battlefield spread down from that ridgeline there into this area that we're standing in now, and of course right down to the riverside through those trees. And it went on until the light faded. So it's about 4 or 5 p.m. now. So in August, the light lasts into around 7-8 o'clock. So fighting of some description continued at some level of ferocity until light faded and you couldn't see anything. The English withdrew, they retreated back the way they had come in that direction. Meanwhile, the left flank that had chased the Scottish baggage and camp followers had to make their way back in a different route to find out what had happened, as was very common in medieval battles. So that, my friends, is the rundown of the Battle of Otterburn. Just this quick trip here to serve as a kind of a behind the scenes thing, because I'm here filming for a better sort of video about this battle, which will be much more detailed. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again for another adventure in Historyland soon.